recognize Brad and Barb and Sam Clovis is here somewhere in this crowd. Those who know Sam and I share a little bit of background that we were both pilots in the United States Air Force, and the uniqueness that I bring to this contest is not just in the sense of having been a chief executive for 14 years of the 12th largest economy in the world, and I might add we did a pretty good job of job creation, but I want to share with you just very briefly why that is such an important aspect of this election. After what will have been 8 years of a young, inexperienced United States Senator, this country is economically in a very fragile condition. When you look and see the number of people who are out of work, we got 1 in 10 of our citizens that are either out of work, that are underemployed, or just have completely given up looking for a job at all. We know we can do better than this. I was sharing with some folks the other day, and as early or as late as today, that I kind of feel like it's 1979 again. You all remember 1979? I'd been out of the Air Force for about a year and a half. Jimmy Carter was hollowing out our military. He had embargoed our wheat from being sold to the Soviet Union. He had boycotted our Olympic athletes to be able to participate in the Olympics. Our embassy in Iran had been overrun. We had a job participation rate about 62.5%, about what it is today. We were on our back. We were in a funk. But the good news is this. If you'll recall, just a short 10 years later, we saw the Berlin Wall fall. We saw Soviet communism defeated because we elected a president who believed in the American people. Believed that when you free Americans from overtaxation and overregulation, you let the economy flourish, that America is strong and the world is safer. And we can do this again. I am optimistic about the future of this country. I think our best days are in front of us, Connie. I know as sure as the sun's going to come up in the east tomorrow, that our best days are in front of us. Because I know the American people. I know what we have the potential to do. Because history has taught us that, and we've seen it ourselves. Think about who we are, what we've been through. We've been through a civil war together. We've been through 2 world wars together. We've been through the Great Depression. We made it through Jimmy Carter. I promise you we will make it through Barack Obama. We'll do this. Our best days are in front of us. But I do think it is imperative as Americans look at where we find ourselves that we elect a leader who gives great confidence to the American people. And I think executive experience, Mark talked about this a little bit. Mark, thank you for being here, and thank you for staying in the game and staying in the fight. Thank you for loving your country. Executive experience is so important. I give the example of if you hop on an airplane over in Des Moines to fly to New York, you probably want to have someone sitting in the front left seat of that aircraft that's a rather experienced captain. Now, your other choice may be somebody who gives a well of a speech, can have you on the edge of your seat talking about aerodynamics and the physics of flight and meteorology and why an airplane stays in the air, and give an incredibly exciting speech. But he's only got 115 hours of flying time. What do you think? You think that captain where's Captain Perry? Thank you very much. But think about that. If you're having a major medical procedure, you want someone who has extraordinary experience in that procedure. You're looking for the most experienced individual. Why not for running this country? Would we not want someone with proven executive experience? And I share with people my life's experiences paint my worldview. I know that when we all stand on the stage and debate, that I'm going to have more time in the seat of a John Deere tractor than anybody else on that stage. I know that. I know I'm going to have more time in the left seat of a C-130 aircraft than anybody else on that stage. There are life's experiences that I've had growing up on that dryland cotton farm, 16 miles from the closest place that had a post office. Watching my mom and dad sometimes working 2 jobs to make the ends meet. Realizing that American way of life needs to be available for everyone. That everyone ought to have hope for a better future. My world experience was painted as being in the United States Air Force and living in some of the same places that Mark lived. In 1975, I lived in Saudi Arabia. I flew in and out of all of the European theater, South America, Central America. As the governor of the state of Texas, for 14 years I was the commander-in-chief of the Texas National Guard. That executive experience that you get from that is incomparable. Nowhere else does that come than having lived through these experiences. Nobody gave me the manual when the space shuttle was destroyed, disintegrated over East Texas. Nobody gave me a manual when Hurricane Katrina came in and there were literally tens of thousands of people coming from Louisiana into Texas and how we dealt with that massive amount of people. Nobody gave me the how-to book last summer when tens of thousands of unaccompanied minors and other individuals we had no idea who were on our southern border. And when the president was coming to Dallas, I said, Mr. President, I want to meet with you because I want you to come and see. Because I think it's so important for the president to understand the vastness of that border, the great challenge that we have. And I met him on the ramp in Dallas. And I looked him in the eye and I said, Mr. President, if you will not secure that border, Texas will. And I realized that he was not going to do his constitutional duty. And I went back to Austin, Texas, and I had the volunteers of the Texas National Guard. I had twice as many volunteers as what we had asked for. And we deployed them to that border, along with our Texas Ranger recon teams, our parks and wildlife wardens that were literally in the river. There was a show of force on that 150-mile region of the southern part of the border, which, by the way, were over 50% of all of the apprehensions on a 1,933-mile border occurred. You fish where the fish are. That's what I told the president. He has his Border Patrol and his ICE agents back away from the border. He makes the argument of, listen, we've spent all of this money on our Border Patrol, increasing the numbers, spending substantial more money. And that's true. But he's got them in the wrong place. He's got them 45 to 50 miles back away from the border in an apprehension position. And we need them on the border, in the river, in a prevention. We know how to secure the border. You put the personnel on the ground. You have the strategic fencing in the metropolitan areas, and you put the aviation assets from Tijuana to El Paso to Brownsville, 1,933 miles. You fly those assets, the drones, the fixed-wing aircraft, the rotorcraft, looking down 24/7 in all kinds of weather every day, where we know exactly what's going on that border because we have the technology to be able to do it. And we can identify when there is clearly illegal activity or suspicious activity, and quick response teams to go there, and Brad, you can't secure the border. You elect me the President of the United States, and I will assure you one thing: the border with Mexico and the United States will be secured. The will has not been there in Washington, D.C. Nobody gave me the book on how to deal with Ebola. When it showed up on the borders, or inside the borders of this country, it came to Dallas, Texas. And Americans got to see a state dealing with a disease that truly had Americans scared. They'd seen how this disease affected Africa, and it showed up in our country. And Americans saw Dr. Brett Joie, Dr. David Lakey, an infectious disease expert, giving great confidence that they were competent in handling this. You recall how long it took the president to put someone into place to be the Ebola czar? And when he finally named someone, it was a spokesperson for a former vice president of the United States. Didn't give you a lot of confidence, did it? But Americans got confidence when they saw how Texas handled this. And that executive experience is invaluable. And there's only one way to get it, and that's having served. And there are some very capable men and women that are going to stand up in front of us and talk about their vision for this country. But what I ask you to do is to really look at who's got the record. Who's got the life experiences? Who is it that you want sitting across the table from Vladimir Putin? Who is it you want looking in the face of individuals who would do harm to the United States? Who is it that you want standing beside Bibi Netanyahu saying, Mr. Prime Minister, America will be there with you in Israel every day? Our best days are in front of us. I'm telling you, I'm so optimistic about the future of this country, and I'm optimistic about it because I know our future and the economics of America are intertwined with our energy policy in North America. There's more known energy reserves in Canada, the United States, and Mexico than Russia and Saudi Arabia. And we need to be developing those, all of our domestic energy resources, making this country truly secure energy-wise. What will happen is we will drive down the cost of electricity because we have an abundant source of power. You couple that with a corporate tax base. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the Western world. Lower the corporate tax rate, and it does two things. Number one, it raises mid-level wages. 10% decrease in the corporate tax rate will give a 5 to 10% increase in mid-level wages. Every blue-collar worker, every union worker in this country ought to be out there standing up and saying, Perry, I'm going to vote for you because you're going to help me live a better life for myself and my family because you're going to raise my wages. That's what we can do, and that's our story. Not only will we help on the wage side of things, but when you give and send a message to manufacturers who have left this country over the last 2 decades because we've overtaxed and overregulated, they will come back on shore. And we can have the most extraordinary renaissance in manufacturing in this country's history. That is what we are. That's our potential. We have an extraordinary opportunity in front of us to get this country back on track economically, which in turn allows us to be able to fund a strong military so that we can defend American values, defend Western values, send the message to our allies that we'll be there with them. My dad turned 90 years old this last April. As an 18-year-old, he volunteered to serve this country in World War II. As a 19-year-old, he was on a B-17, flying 35 missions out of East Anglia over the English Channel to liberate a continent from fascism. Some years back, I took him back to his old air base, which wasn't but 50 or 60 miles away from where I had served at RAF Mildenhall. We went back to his old air station. I walked with him through his old combat mess that's still on station. We walked up that runway that he rumbled along 35 times with a bomb-laden B-17. It was a powerful trip and a moment for me. We crossed the English Channel together. We went to that cemetery above Omaha Beach for the June the 6th ceremonies. One of the most powerful places that I've ever been in my life. Row after row of white crosses and stars of David. Recognizing over 9,000 of our young Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice for us. And it struck me as I surveyed that on that wind-swept plain above that beach. Every one of those headstones face west. West across the Atlantic, west to the America that they loved, west to the America they would never return home to. They are standing there in silent judgment. And we have to ask ourselves today if we've earned their respect, if their sacrifice was worth it. And I'll suggest to you that this election cycle, we will answer that. And we will answer it in a loud and a proud way. That yes, indeed, those sacrifices will work. We will elect a President of the United States that again sends the message loud and clear around the globe that America is back, that America is strong, that America and American values will be respected again. God bless you, and thank you all for coming out and being a part of this today. Jamie Johnson. Jamie, thank you for being on our team and helping us. As I open it up for some questions, and may we do that. And you have on your table there, if you don't, I'll be more than happy to hand you one. This is just a little. I can't make a difference in this country if I'm not elected president. I can't exhibit my executive leadership if I'm not president of the United States. And I can't be president of the United States unless I win Iowa. You all are important. And that's not just talk, that's a fact. The state has a very, very important role in this presidential election. And the work that you do is going to be incredibly important. I'm going to spend a lot of time here. You're going to see me often. And there's about 6 or 7 items on here that I really would like for you to take a look at. If you believe the next President of the United States needs to be somebody with some extraordinary executive experience, someone who has life's experiences that truly matter, someone who can go into every community in this country and talk to them about how to uplift this country, someone who understands that the future of this country is not in Washington, D.C., it's in states like Iowa, it's in states like Nebraska, it's in states like Texas, it's in these. Louis Brandeis, an old Supreme Court justice, said that the states were the laboratories of democracy. And it was up to the states to go and come up with novel ideas about how to address their state's needs. Those of you in the Iowa legislature know better how to deal with the issues that face the people of Iowa than some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. We were able to go from 27th in the nation in 2003 in high school graduation rates to the second highest graduation rates in the country in a 10-year period of time. And we did it without No Child Left Behind. We did it without Race to the Top. And we did it without Common Core. You don't have to have Washington, D.C. telling you how to run your education system, your healthcare system, or your transportation system. And we need a president that will stand up and devolve this power back to the states. Let these laboratories of innovation compete against each other. And if you believe in that with all your heart, pick up one of these and check off one of those, whether it's saying, Perry, I'll come caucus for you, because that is the most powerful thing that you can do. All the way to the bottom of that list of listen, we'll do a house party for you. Pick one of those out. I really appreciate your consideration and your help. I want to be your president because I know America's best days are in front of us. Let me attempt to answer any of your questions that you may have. We've got about 10 minutes here. We'll do it. Yes, ma'am. She asked a question about voter fraud. I will suggest to you that is a state issue. In my home state, there may be some states out there that don't think that protecting that precious right to vote is that important. Now, I disagree with them. But this is something that states need to address. In the state of Texas, we thought that protecting the right to vote was a very important issue. And we passed voter identification law that if you to get on an airplane, I'm pretty sure you can't go check a book out of a library in Austin, Texas without a picture ID. And we think that if it's important enough to know who somebody is that's getting on an airplane, it's important enough to know whether someone is who they say they are when they come to vote. I think that's the way this needs to be addressed. This is not from my perspective, again, this is not something that the federal government, I'm pretty sure they'd foul it up if the federal government were to make it a federal program. So let the states address this issue of voter ID to safeguard the right to vote in those states. Yes, sir. Mark, I may need to get the farmer administrator up here. Listen, I'm a big believer that we got enough laws in this country by and large. If we just enforce the ones we got on the books. The sanctuary city is a great example of it. I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent there, but the idea that somehow that we need to pass more laws, we need to have a federal government that actually performs the duty that the Constitution requires it to. And I get back to this whole concept about the federal government is supposed to do a few things and do those few things well. My instinct is that the next president of the United States, and Lord willing, it's going to be a Republican. And it's a Republican that believes that the federal government is supposed to do those few things and do those few things well. And to start devolving as much of that back to the states as we can is going to require bringing people who are committed to that philosophy to the cabinet and then to those. Mark and I were just talking about how you deal with an agency that is not following the directions from above. And because of civil service laws, you cannot fire. What'd you say, Mark? You sooner see somebody die than...
Yeah, Mitch Daniels, my old boss, used to say, you're more likely to die on the job than to be fired.
At the federal level, I thought that was kind of instructive there. But the point is, you with the right philosophically attuned people that are committed to changing the culture of an agency like the IRS, if you have individuals that don't follow your instructions on how to make this be more user-friendly, for instance, they get reassigned. You can reassign them. So, I'm pretty sure that if we reassign you somewhere really far away from here, your wife would go, "What are you doing? Get your act together and get back down there and do what your boss tells you to do." But the IRS is obviously out of control. This is an agency I think there's a corrupt culture there, and we see it in more than obviously just the IRS. I am particularly passionate about our veterans and the lack of support that they've seen out of the Veterans Administration. I think that is a corrupt agency, and after a year of focus on it by Washington, D.C., I haven't seen any changes. And let me share with you why I think that's the case, because I don't think the President of the United States goes to work every day and makes a call to the Veterans Administration Secretary now and says, "What are you doing to make sure that our veterans are getting the service that they've earned, that they deserve?" That's not happening. Those bureaucrats know that. Until there is a president that exudes that type of pressure downward, we're going to continue to see these corrupt agencies in Washington, D.C. One more. Yes, ma'am. Brings up a really important that I think we've seen a federal court making decisions that don't follow the will of the bulk of the people in this country. Let me just put it this way, I don't agree with that 5-4 decision that the court addressed this. And it gets right to the heart of religious freedom. And what you saw out of the response, what you saw out of Bobby in Louisiana by responding with the way that he did with the response was a message that we believe in the First Amendment of the Constitution, that our freedom of religion is one of the basic tenets of this country. It's why this country was founded, when we acknowledge why people came here to begin with. They were persecuted, and they came to America to be free. Our Constitution was written by people who believe in that Judeo-Christian direction and creed. And every day, we need a President of the United States that affirms that. Affirms the belief in the Constitution, affirms the belief that we are a country that was created by God. And our Creator endowed us with these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I mean, we're getting away from that, and we need it reflected in the White House. I think it's important to have a leader that does, in fact, reflect that. And I told somebody the other day that nothing against golf, but on Sunday morning you're not going to see me at the golf course. God bless you. Thank you all for letting us come out here.
Before we head out, I need to acknowledge our House Majority Leader, Linda Upmeyer. If you could please stand. We need to make sure that we re-elect her and get her sent back to the state capitol to represent us. Another couple that I'd like to acknowledge is Mr. and Mrs. Furley. You had a